There is a moment in the collapse of any family that was, before everything else, a family. Before the empire, before the cameras, before the network that reached 2 billion households across the world, before the board meetings and the legal filings and the competing wills, there was a man and a woman who met at a church revival in Greenville, South Carolina, fell in love, and spent the next 4 decades building something together. Marcus and Joni Lamb founded Daystar Television Network on faith and on each other. They built it from a single low-power station in Alabama into one of the largest Christian broadcasting empires in the world. They raised 3 children inside it, Jonathan, Rachel, and Rebecca. They gave those children roles within the ministry. They built a dynasty the way families build dynasties, with the assumption that what they were building would hold. And then, in the space of 5 years, almost all of it came apart. Marcus died in November 2021. Joni remarried in 2023. Jonathan was fired in 2024. Joni died in May 2026, and as of June 2026, 2 members of the same family are fighting over 2 contradictory wills in a Dallas courtroom, while the network their parents built sits with no publicly named CEO, a fractured board, and a reputation that has been shaken to its foundation. This is not a story about a television network, this is a story about a family, and it is one of the most heartbreaking stories in American Christianity right now. To understand what is being fought over, you have to understand what was actually built. Marcus and Joni Lamb married in 1982. In 1984, they moved to Montgomery, Alabama, and purchased the state's first full-power Christian television station, WMFCF-TV. They ran it for 6 years, built it into something significant, and then sold it in 1990 and moved to Dallas, Texas, where a larger market waited. In 1993, they purchased a defunct Dallas station called KMPX. In 1996, with a major financial contribution from Kenneth Copeland Ministries, they purchased a station in Colorado, turning their single station into a network. In 1998, the station was renamed Daystar Television Network. By the mid-2000s, Daystar had become one of the largest religious broadcasting operations in the world, reaching, by its own account, over 108 million households in the United States and more than 2 billion people globally. Joni hosted her own daily program, Joni Table Talk. Marcus co-hosted the flagship program Ministry Now. Their children grew up on camera and behind the scenes. Jonathan served as vice president, Rachel served as director of communications, and Rebecca was a producer and on-air contributor. Their spouses held senior roles as well. This was, in every possible sense, a family business built on faith. At the time of Joni's death in May 2026, the estate included 4 houses in Texas, a home in Georgia, a beach condominium in Florida, private luxury jets, and an $11.7 million real estate portfolio. Her net worth was estimated at approximately $40 million. The kingdom was real, and it had no clear successor. On November 30, 2021, Marcus Lamb died in a Dallas hospital from COVID-19 complications. He was 64 years old. His death came after a deeply painful period. He had, in November 2010, confessed publicly on air to a 7-year extramarital affair with a Daystar employee, a confession that triggered lawsuits from former employees, accusations of cover-up, and a public crisis that the network had spent years working to move past. By 2021, Marcus had become one of the most prominent voices in Christian media against COVID-19 vaccines, despite the fact that he had not been vaccinated himself. His death from the virus he had minimized was noted, painfully, by many observers. His death left Joni as the sole leader of Daystar. It also left unresolved a question the family had apparently never formally answered. Who would lead Daystar when Marcus and Joni were gone? Jonathan Lamb, the only son, had served for years as vice president. In his own account, and this is important to note as his account, he believed he was the heir apparent. He had expected to be named to a leadership role following his father's death. That appointment never came. Joni did not name Jonathan as her successor. She continued to lead the network herself. And in 2023, less than 2 years after Marcus's death, she did something that no one in the immediate family anticipated. She married again. On June 10, 2023, Joni Lamb married Doug Weiss, a psychologist and television co-host who had been a regular guest on Daystar programming, and who had divorced his wife of over 30 years earlier that same year. Jonathan and Susie Lamb objected to the marriage on theological grounds, believing that Weiss's divorce did not meet the biblical criteria that would permit remarriage under their understanding of Scripture. What followed, according to Jonathan and Susie, was intense pressure to publicly endorse the marriage and retaliation when they refused to do so. We have covered Doug Weiss's full background in a previous video. What matters here, for the purpose of this story, is what happened next. In July 2023, Joni Lamb was abruptly fired from her co-hosting role on Daystar's show, The Green Room. In November 2024, Jonathan Lamb was fired as vice president. Daystar's official statement cited a 15-month performance review and said Jonathan had been dismissed for insubordination and failure to meet improvement plans. Jonathan's version was different. He said he was fired because he had raised concerns about the alleged sexual abuse of his young daughter by a Daystar family member, and because he had refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement. These competing accounts are the center of the most sensitive part of this entire story, and we have to hold them carefully, because what is alleged is deeply serious, and what has been proven is much more limited. In November 2024, Jonathan and Joni Lamb went public with allegations that their young daughter had been sexually abused, first when she was approximately 4 years old, and again in August 2021 at a Daystar executive retreat at a vacation property. They alleged that when they reported the incidents to Marcus and Joni Lamb, the family leadership discouraged them from going to police in order to protect the ministry's reputation. These are Jonathan and Joni Lamb's allegations. Daystar denied them. Joni Lamb called them completely false and described them as a smear campaign motivated by Jonathan's disappointment at not being named president. The Colleyville, Texas Police Department investigated the case for approximately 18 months. In 2025, the investigation was closed without charges, citing an absence of evidence. The individual Jonathan and Susie, identified only by the pseudonym Pete, voluntarily took and passed 2 forensic polygraph examinations and was never named a person of interest. In November 2025, the Roy's Report, the investigative journalism outlet that has been the primary source of accountability reporting on Daystar, published police interview footage involving Rebecca Lamb Weiss, Jonathan's other sister, and her husband. In those interviews, Rebecca expressed uncertainty about what had happened and said she initially suspected the person Jonathan and Susie accused. The Roy's Report also identified the individual described as Pete as Josh Brown, the husband of Rachel Lamb Brown, the sister who is now filing the legal action against Jonathan. Josh Brown has not publicly responded to these allegations. He was never named a person of interest by police. The investigation was closed. These are reported allegations from a single investigative source, and they have not been proven in any legal proceeding. What they do establish, regardless of their ultimate truth, is that the family fracture at the center of this story is not simply about money or television networks. It involves a child who, by her own parents' account, experienced something terrible, and a family that was unable to agree on how to respond to it. Joni Lamb died on May 7, 2026, in Bedford, Texas, from complications of metastatic bone cancer. She was 65 years old. Jonathan was not a featured speaker at her memorial service. According to his wife Susie's public statements, they were not informed she was dying until after she had passed, despite being physically nearby. Then, in late May and early June 2026, the legal machinery began to move. Rachel Lamb Brown filed a lawsuit in Dallas probate court after discovering 2 contradictory wills left by Joni. The details are still emerging, but what has been reported is this. Rachel is contesting a final, later will that allegedly includes modifications benefiting Jonathan Lamb and Doug Weiss. She has submitted an earlier version of the estate planning documents to the court and is seeking to have that earlier version validated, which would, if successful, preserve the network's current leadership structure and maintain Jonathan's exclusion from Daystar. For Rachel, the lawsuit is framed as defending her mother's true wishes and the stability of the network. For Jonathan, the deathbed will, if authentic and if it contains what has been reported, would represent his mother's final, private acknowledgement that she wanted him back. This aligns with what an anonymous source told the Roy's Report, that just 3 weeks before her death, Joni told a Daystar board member directly to give him back Daystar if Jonathan reached out. That account is unverified. It is from a single anonymous source, but if true, it means a mother's final act was a wish that her children may never honor. As of June 2026, the Dallas probate court is reviewing the validity of the conflicting documents. Daystar has no publicly named CEO. Its board of directors is running the network. The future of one of the largest Christian broadcasting operations in the world is in the hands of a judge. I want to say something plainly before we close. This story has no villains I'm prepared to name. Every person in it, Jonathan, Susie, Rachel, Rebecca, Joni, Marcus, Doug Weiss, Chusa Tuelse, is a human being who has made choices under pressure that most of us will never fully understand from the outside. The abuse allegations are serious and unresolved. The will contest is legitimate legal action. The competing accounts of what happened and why are genuinely, painfully irreconcilable from where we sit. What I know is this: somewhere in the middle of a fight over wills and networks and luxury jets and real estate portfolios, there is a child who is allegedly hurt. There are siblings who may never speak again. There is a mother who built a Christian television empire with her first husband and spent her final weeks dying in another country, with questions about who had access to her phone and whether her children ever got to say goodbye. None of that is how Marcus and Joni Lamb intended this story to end. They built something together, in faith, for a purpose they believed in. They raised 3 children inside it. They gave those children their lives' work. What happens to that work now is being decided in a Dallas courtroom. Whatever the outcome, I hope the child at the center of this story is safe. I hope the siblings find some version of peace. And I hope the people watching Daystar, who gave their donations and their trust to a network they believed in, are eventually given the full truth. They deserve that. They always did. If you've been following this story and want to understand more, I direct you directly to the Roy's Report. Julie Roy's investigative work has been the most thorough and careful journalism on this topic. All links in the description. Take care of each other. I'll see you in the next one.